7.6 is on the reduction of air pollutants. You want to be able to explain how air pollutants can be reduced at the source. Regulatory practices include those like the Clean Air Act, where there is a government institution that says how much of a certain thing can be produced, how many emissions are acceptable. So it regulates those practices so that we have less of those pollutants. For instance, with the criteria air pollutants. The conservation practices are things that reduce the emissions in the first place by using less of whatever that pollutant source is. That could come in the form of conserving energy, looking for things with an Energy Star label, decrease the amount of time spent driving by carpooling or using mass transportation, walking, biking, being sure to just be responsible with chemicals, seal them when you're not using them, so that don't get like VOCs building up. Making sure to keep up on your car maintenance, changing your oil, filters, and all those other car things. Another method is by using alternative fuels. So if you use less fossil fuels, that means we're emitting less carbon emissions, so that's carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. Making less nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, mercury, and particulate matter. So a little more like Clean Air Act. So some things you want to know with the Clean Air Act is this led to the ban of lead in fuels, which decreased the amount in the atmosphere by a lot. It also established standards for the criteria air pollutants, and it also set up a cap and trade of sulfur dioxide. So what cap and trade is, let's say you have two factories, factory A on the left and factory B on the right. They're both allowed to have so many emissions. Let's say factory A is a newer factory. It's got more scrubbers and it's just a better factory all around. They're not making as many emissions as they're allowed to have. Well, they can sell it to factory B, which we can see over here. Factory B is maybe a really old factory. You did not invest in scrubbers and is making way too much pollution. Well, this way they can get away with that without having to pay fines, because the amount that they'd have to pay in fines would be a lot more than just buying it from factory A, and also costs less typically than having to upgrade the equipment so that they don't produce that much in the first place. Vapor recovery nozzles are devices on the nozzle of the gas tank thingy. I don't know why I'm blanking on the word right now. So it's on the gasoline pump, and it prevents those fumes from escaping into the atmosphere. So that decreases, the atmospheric ozone. Catalytic converters decrease the amount of hydrocarbons that go in the air, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides. They do some really cool, fancy things and turn into water vapor, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen gas. So this kind of still sucks because we're still emitting carbon dioxide, but we're not getting carbon monoxide. So it's kind of a trade-off, but there you go. And scrubbers remove particulates and or gases from industrial exhaust streams. Yeah. So you don't have to know the exact method of this. You just have to know that that's how they work. So they either use like a spray tower or like things that absorb the pollutants. Baghouse filters are really, really big filters that trap almost all of the particulate matter in exhaust. And electrostatic precipitators use electrical charges to make those particles stick together and get turned into bigger particles, and that way they can just be removed, and this reduces the amount of particulate matter leaving a factory. Oh, and fluidized bed combustion, they take granulated coal, this burn proximity to calcium carbonate, and that absorbs sulfur dioxide and turns into calcium sulfate, which can then be physically removed, so that reduces the amount of sulfur dioxide being emitted from a factory.